Welcome to the Stronger with Age podcast.
Because aging is just the beginning.
I love that. That's so true.
Yeah.
And welcome to this deep dive, everyone,
Absolutely.
where we're going to be tackling a pretty big question. What is the latest on extending human lifespan and maybe even achieving immortality?
The big one.
Yeah, the big one, the big
Okay.
question, right?
Yeah.
And we have got quite a bit of source material to go over.
We do.
So think of this deep dive as your like cheat sheet to understanding
That's
this whole topic and where it stands.
Yeah.
We've got insights from a Fortune article
Okay.
that is looking at the societal impact. We have some excerpts from a podcast called Immortality Through Technology.
Ooh, very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of exploring that sci-fi side of things.
I like it.
We've got the Wikipedia overview on immortality in general.
Of course. Gotta have that.
Yeah, always got to have Wikipedia.
Foundation.
And then we have a report from News Medical that's talking about some really promising chemical ways to reverse aging.
Oh, wow. Now we're talking.
That's exciting.
And then an article from the Economic Times with a former Google scientist
Okay.
who is making some predictions about the future.
Love it.
So our mission today is to kind of connect the dots between all of this
Okay.
and give you the key takeaways on where we stand.
Yeah, I think a good place to start would be with just defining what we're even talking about when we say immortality.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot.
That can mean a lot of different things.
Exactly. It's not as straightforward as it sounds.
Yeah. So let's unpack this a little bit.
Sure.
Wikipedia starts us off, with the basic idea. Immortality is just eternal life.
Right, the simplest definition.
But then it gets a little more specific.
Yeah.
And it breaks it down into physical and biological immortality.
Okay.
So what's the difference?
Well, so physical immortality is kind of what we often picture, right?
Yeah.
It's living forever, literally never dying.
Right.
And importantly, still being conscious the whole time. Right, yeah.
Biological immortality is a little different.
Okay.
It's more about not aging.
Okay.
So your likelihood of dying doesn't increase as time goes on.
I see.
And what's really fascinating is there are species in the natural world that already exhibit this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, think of bacteria.
Okay.
They just keep dividing, right?
Okay.
Or the Turritopsis dohrnii jellyfish.
What?
Yeah, it can actually revert back to an earlier life stage.
Whoa, that's wild.
It is.
Like Benjamin Button, but a jellyfish.
Exactly. And even things like the hydra, these tiny freshwater creatures,
Okay.
they don't seem to experience that typical increase in mortality with age.
Huh. So they kind of already have biological immortality, in a way.
In a way, yes. They've cracked the code that we're still trying to figure out.
And it's so interesting, you talk about these examples, and it really highlights just how long humans have been fascinated by this idea of living forever.
Oh, absolutely. It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, Wikipedia points out that ancient Mesopotamians, they believed their gods were physically immortal,
Right.
and sometimes even offer that state to certain humans.
It was a common theme.
Yeah, and then you've got the classic stories,
Yeah,
like Ponce de Leon searching for the Fountain of Youth,
of course.
or alchemists trying to create the Philosopher's Stone.
Classic quests for immortality.
Right, so this desire for endless life,
Mm-hmm.
it really seems to be like a fundamental part of the human story.
It's deeply ingrained in us, this desire to overcome our mortality.
Absolutely, and when you look at religious beliefs,
Yeah.
there are so many different perspectives on this too.
Absolutely, each with its own unique interpretation.
Christianity, for a lot of believers, it centers around the resurrection.
Right. The idea of being raised from the dead in a physically immortal form.
And then in Islam, you have the concept of spiritual immortality in Jannah.
Yes, paradise for the righteous.
And then Judaism has a variety of views.
Yeah, it's a bit more complex.
Yeah, more nuanced.
Influenced by historical interactions with other philosophies.
Right, it's fascinating how many different angles there are to consider.
It really is.
From the very tangible
Yeah.
to the spiritual and philosophical.
Absolutely. And then you bring in the philosophers.
Oh, yeah.
Who add another layer to this whole conversation.
Right, Wikipedia mentions some big names.
Oh, yeah.
Like Plato, Plotinus, Descartes, Leibniz.
All heavy hitters in the world of philosophy.
They all argued for the immortality of the soul.
Right. And their arguments often focused on this idea that the soul is something separate from our physical bodies.
Right, like it's indivisible, it can't be destroyed.
Exactly. It exists beyond the physical realm.
And it's so interesting how these philosophical concepts, which are often rooted in this idea of a non-physical soul,
Yeah.
they contrast with the more modern scientific and technological approaches.
It's a real shift to perspective, right?
Yeah, from the metaphysical to the Very cellular.
Exactly. Trying to achieve immortality through technology and scientific advancements.
Which brings us to what I think a lot of people find really exciting
Okay.
and maybe a little scary.
The cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, technological immortality.
Let's dive in.
So the Immortality Through Technology podcast excerpts we have,
Yeah.
they talk about how advancements in nanotechnology, gene therapy, regenerative medicine
All these rapidly developing fields.
could potentially lead to much longer lifespans.
The potential is huge.
Yeah, and a key figure in this area is Raymond Kurzweil.
Ah, yes, the futurist.
Yeah, both the podcast and the Economic Times article we have, they highlight his prediction.
It's a pretty bold one.
Yeah, he's saying that medical nanorobotics
Tiny robots. Incredible.
could essentially reverse aging
Wow.
by 2030.
That's just around the corner.
I know, right?
So he's envisioning these tiny robots circulating in our bodies,
Yeah,
constantly repairing any damage to our cells and tissues.
that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, doesn't it? But it's the kind of vision that drives innovation.
And the Economic Times article even mentions Robert Freitas, who takes this idea even further.
Oh, really? How so?
He talks about these nanobots in our bloodstream that would actually hunt down and destroy threats like cancer cells.
Wow. That's taken it to a whole new level.
Yeah, it's like a microscopic army defending us from disease.
It's a radical vision of what medicine could become.
Absolutely. So we've got these, futuristic ideas about nanotechnology.
Yeah.
But then we're also seeing some major progress in understanding and even reversing aging
Okay.
at a cellular level.
Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, and this is where that News Medical article comes in.
Oh, yeah. What did they find?
It talks about this breakthrough at Harvard Medical School,
Okay.
where they developed chemical cocktails that can rewind cells to a younger state.
Wait, rewind cells? Like turning back time?
It sounds crazy, but yeah.
How does that even work?
Well, it's not about directly changing our genes.
Okay.
It's a chemical approach. So they're using these specific chemical mixtures to affect how the cells function.
So they're manipulating the cell's environment to make it act younger.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how quickly it seems to work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the article says these cocktails were able to reverse what's called transcriptomic age.
Transcriptomic age.
Yeah, think of it like the age of a cell reflected in its activity.
Oh, I see. Like how old the cell acts based on which genes are turned on and off.
Exactly. And they were able to reverse this age in less than a week
Wow, in just a few days. That's incredible.
using 6 specific cocktails.
6. So it's not just one magic potion.
Not yet, at least.
But still, 6 cocktails that can make a cell act younger? That's a huge breakthrough.
It is, and it's a completely different approach than gene therapy.
So instead of going in and editing genes directly, they're using chemicals to change how those genes are expressed.
Right, they're targeting the processes within the cell.
Interesting.
The article highlighted how this new chemical method could be a game changer
Yeah, I can see that.
for how we treat aging and age-related diseases.
It opens up a whole new avenue.
And because it's chemical rather than genetic, it might be more cost-effective.
Right, and potentially faster to develop and get to patients.
Exactly.
But what about gene therapy?
Oh yeah, it's still showing a lot of promise too.
Okay.
The News Medical article mentioned that gene therapy has actually had positive results in reversing blindness in monkeys,
Wow, that's amazing.
and that clinical trials in humans for age reversal gene therapies are already underway.
So we've got these two really promising approaches going on at the same time.
Exactly. It feels like we're attacking aging from multiple angles.
And that's a good thing.
It is.
Multiple shots on goal.
And David A. Sinclair, who led that research on the chemical cocktails,
Oh, yeah. What does he say?
he's quoted in the article as being very optimistic.
That's encouraging.
And he even suggests the possibility of a single pill
A single pill.
that could reverse aging.
Now that would be a game changer.
Right. It would have huge implications for treating a whole range of age-related conditions.
It's mind-blowing to think about.
It is, and it's all incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
But then your mind starts to wander to those more out there concepts,
Okay, like what?
like mind uploading
Oh, wow.
and digital immortality.
Right. The idea of transferring our consciousness to a computer.
Yeah, both the Immortality Through Technology podcast and Wikipedia touch on this.
It's definitely a more futuristic and kind of unsettling idea.
It is the idea that we could transfer our consciousness
Yeah.
to a digital realm for eternal existence.
Like living in a
It
simulation.
really stretches the boundaries of what we understand as life and consciousness.
Absolutely. It raises so many questions.
Like, is that really you living forever?
Yeah. Good question.
Or is it just a copy?
Right. What happens to the original you?
Yeah, it's a real philosophical rabbit hole.
It really is. It makes you question the nature of identity.
And Wikipedia also mentions some other technologies that are being explored. Cryonics.
Oh, yeah. Freezing bodies.
Hoping for future revival.
Hoping that someday technology will be able to bring them back.
Right.
That's a long shot.
And then there's cybernetics.
Merging technology with our bodies.
Yeah, integrating technology directly into our biology.
It's like becoming part machine.
So there's this whole spectrum of possibilities out there.
It's amazing how far human ingenuity can stretch.
It is. But all of these possibilities, from the near term, things like those chemical interventions,
Yeah.
to the more distant, like digital concepts,
Right.
they all come with their own set of ethical and societal considerations.
Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial part of this conversation.
Yeah, the Immortality through Technology Podcast and Wikipedia both highlight this.
What are some of the main concerns?
Well, for starters, who gets access to these life-extending technologies?
Right. It's a question of equity and access.
Could this create an even bigger divide in society?
Where only the wealthy can afford to live indefinitely.
Yeah, and Wikipedia cites Panagiotis Panteras, who suggests that overcoming aging
Yeah.
could lead to a heightened stratification of humans in society and a wider gap between social classes.
That's a pretty dire prediction.
It is a stark warning.
Yeah.
And if we take a step back and think about it, the sociological implications of this are huge.
Absolutely. It would reshape our entire world.
Our understanding of mortality shapes so much of how our society functions.
Yeah. It influences our values, our priorities, our institutions.
How would an immortal society even function?
That's a question we'd have to grapple with very seriously.
We'd have to completely rethink things like population growth, the environmental impact.
It would be a paradigm shift unlike anything we've ever seen.
And then you have the philosophical arguments against even wanting immortality.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Wikipedia mentions Kagan's dilemma.
What's that?
It's this idea that either we stay the same forever
Okay.
and eventually become bored with endless life,
I can see that happening.
or we change so much over time
Yeah.
that we're no longer really the same person.
Right. So is it even really immortality if you become a completely different being?
Exactly. It makes you wonder if endless life is even something we truly desire.
It forces us to really examine what makes life meaningful and what role our limited time plays in that.
But let's bring in another perspective here.
Okay, whose?
The Fortune Commentary by Dr. Joel Guiderman.
Okay, a medical professional's viewpoint.
Exactly. He's co-chair of emergency medicine at Cedars-Sinai.
Impressive credentials.
Yeah. And he offers a really interesting take on this whole thing.
What's his main point?
He acknowledges that we might be getting closer to a cure for aging, especially with AI driving research forward so quickly.
What?
But his main concern, and I think it's a really valid one,
Yeah.
is that society simply isn't prepared
Not prepared. For what?
for the widespread reversal of aging.
Across the entire population.
Exactly.
I can see why that would be a concern.
Yeah, it's one thing to extend an individual's lifespan, but it's a whole other challenge to fundamentally alter the demographics and social structures of the planet.
It's a massive undertaking.
It is, and Dr. Guiderman's point about us not being ready really highlights the need for a much broader conversation.
A conversation that goes beyond just the science.
Yeah, we need to think about the why and the what ifs.
The ethical implications, the social consequences.
Exactly.
So we've explored all these different sources today.
Yeah.
And what's become clear is this incredible effort to extend human life.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted pursuit,
From the biological breakthroughs.
like those chemical cocktails that can reprogram cells.
Which is a huge leap forward.
Yeah, to those more theoretical and ethically complex ideas of technological immortality.
And everything in between.
What's really striking is how fast the science is moving.
It's accelerating at an incredible pace.
The ability to reverse the age of cells using chemicals.
Yeah.
It opens up so many possibilities for treating diseases and injuries.
Possibilities we could only dream of a few years ago.
And it offers a whole new path alongside gene therapy.
Which is also showing so much promise.
But as these possibilities become more real,
Yeah.
those big questions about society and ethics,
They become even more crucial.
Dr. Guiderman's point about our lack of readiness,
It's a wake-up call.
it really is. It's not enough to just figure out how to live longer.
Right.
We need to seriously consider why and what the consequences would be for everyone.
We need a global conversation about this.
Absolutely.
So this brings us to a final thought for all of you listening.
Okay.
Given everything we've discussed today,
Yeah.
what single aspect of achieving significantly extended lifespans,
Okay.
be it personal, societal, or ethical,
Yeah.
do you find most compelling or concerning?
It's a big question.
It is, but it's one worth pondering.
Your perspective matters in this conversation.
Absolutely. The future is being shaped right now.
Okay, there you have it.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
Stay tuned for upcoming episodes.
Bye.